Pet Care Rockstars is brought to you by.
Do you have a pet care business but need a website? Well, look no further than the Pet Care Rockstars website solution. We can deliver to you a fast-loading, mobile-optimized website that's also SEO friendly. Your customers will love our websites, and you'll love the affordability. We'll also give you all the tools you need to easily maintain your website, even if you have little technical knowledge. Go to petcarerockstars.com/websites now to get more information.
Welcome to Pet Care Rockstars. Solid advice you can implement into your own pet care business today. Whether you're just starting out, getting ready to grow, or ready to scale. You'll hear firsthand from Pet Care Rockstars who've been down this path before, including what worked, what didn't, and some tools you'll need for your awesome journey. Now the host of Pet Care Rockstars, Dave Westwood.
My guest today is the head of C4P Animal Rescue, which is an animal advocacy network connecting animal-loving citizens all across Canada. The C4P network promotes rescues, fosters and adoptions, keeps readers current on animal issues, and showcases innovations and successes in animal welfare. She's also an expert in special needs boarding. In her daytime job, she's the president and CEO of mediaIntelligence in Canada, where she's been the leading provider of strategic recruitment and cutting-edge career resources for professionals in the Canadian media and entertainment sectors. She's also the author of the book Careers AF. Michelle Nadon, welcome to Pet Care Rockstars.
Thanks so very much, Dave. It's great to be here.
Hey, glad to have you. I could go on and on about your accomplishments, but why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. Thank you. I am a busy woman. I will admit to that much. I think primarily I come from a long line of nurses, actually. So the rescue piece of me is kind of front and center. I have been rescuing domestic farm animals and wildlife for 20, 25 years, well, probably all of my life, but seriously for the last 20 years. I did go out and get my veterinary assisting credentials about 5 years ago. To be able to add to or be as a value add to the special needs pet boarding services that I offer. And I also, on the side, when I have spare time, I study immunology and functional medicine very deeply. So, so those are some of the attributes that I bring to the special needs community and the rescue community in general. Now, that being said, what we're going to discuss today probably is centered around mostly special needs care and handling for domestic pets. And I just want to include a disclaimer that none of the information that you're going to be given today can be taken as veterinary advice in any way, shape, or form. It's just my experiential portfolio. And of course, any tips and advice that we offer up should always be cleared with your veterinarian first.
Awesome. And thanks for that disclaimer. We are definitely going to talk a lot about the special needs boarding, but I do want to talk a little bit about the rescue because I think it's a really fascinating story on how you got started in rescue and how it really eventually evolved or evolved. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I really did not intend for my life to go this way. I had a beautiful, beautiful dog, my very first dog that was my own in my early 30s. And somewhere in that first 6 or 7 years of his life, we discovered another local dog who was a German Shepherd who was kept outdoors all year round and sorely neglected. And so we made friends with the German Shepherd, and we were always over visiting and what have you. And then years later, the dog got extremely sick. His family wasn't blessed with observational powers. They loved their dog, yes, but they didn't do regular vetting or anything like that. So anyway, I realized just how sick Max was. I begged them to allow me to bring him to a veterinarian. They did allow me to do that. And when I got him there, he was diagnosed with an 8-inch spleen tumor, which I had obviously never dealt with. So I brought the dog back to his family. I explained to them what was going to go on because the veterinarian told me what trajectory a spleen tumor actually takes, and it's not nice. And the family actually, they weren't capable of the care. And I said, why don't you just turn him over to me? And they did. They handed me his collar and said, enjoy your new dog. So I brought him home. And he was supposed to live 2 to 12 weeks, but he actually lived 5 months. and died in my arms on my kitchen floor. It was a beautiful dog. And then so that story kind of catapulted me from a local crazy woman to a local hero. And word started getting around, and the rescue community started seeking me out to help them with other palliative dogs. And then for the next decade, I did a whole series of palliative and geriatric animals, and I, got experienced with every kind of, everything from congestive heart to spleen tumors to brain tumors to failing limbs, all of it. So that's kind of how my experience became what it was, or what it is.
Now, your experience isn't just Canada. You also were responsible for, along with other rescue organizations, saving over 800 animals during Hurricane Katrina, which, for people that have only seen that on the news, give us a firsthand account of, not only the devastation, but what kinds of efforts are needed to kind of scale a rescue operation like this.
Well, when I decided to go to organize some rescue groups to go down from Canada to Hurricane Katrina, I had just lost both of my shepherds, Cyril and Missy, in a 5-week period, and I was in a terribly emotional black hole over their loss. So I decided to go to Hurricane Katrina in their honor. And everybody always thinks that there's a process involved. Like, there really isn't. I put a call out to, or I put an email out to about 50 friends saying, I'm going to Katrina. I need a second driver. I need supplies. I need this. I need that. Please help me. And Cambridge and District Humane Society, Bonnie Deacon, bless her soul, signed on to let us travel under their auspices. So we just headed down. Now, the 800 dogs actually were, there was a compound in Tylertown, just north of NOLA, where they had 800 rescue dogs. We didn't bring home 800. We brought home over 3 runs. I think that the total was 60. But it was a phenomenal experience. And what I remember so vividly was one night the coyotes were out on the hill and they were all singing. And all 800 dogs in the camp started singing with the coyotes. You'd never heard anything like it in your life. It was just beautiful. And when I got there, I was so pleased. They asked me, what do you want to do while you're here? And I'm like, I'll do anything, like just assign me. And they said, no, what do you want to do? And I thought about it and I said, oh my God, I would really like to be in post-op if I can. And they said, absolutely. So they put a cot down in post-op, and that's where I spent the next 12 nights, 12 days and nights sleeping and working around the clock with the animals there.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said you did bring some of them back, but hopefully they've all had found homes, or
Oh yes, they all found the most beautiful homes. It was a great operation, and at least one of them is still alive, because this is a number of years later. One of them is still alive, Francis, the little rat bone terrier. I was out to see him just last year. He's 13 now, and he's still thriving.
Oh wow, that's great. So what sort of situations do you encounter with rescue in Canada relative to other areas? And do you think there's a different mindset in Canada versus pet owners, maybe in the rest of the world, in the United States or other places?
There are distinctions that I can make between the United States and Canada. Canada is a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more forthcoming with their care and handling of domestic animals. But the whole area, it's so, everybody who goes out and adopts a dog, unless you've had dog experience in your, growing up with dogs or something, everybody learns the hard way with their dogs. Like, there's no rule book. And so one of the things that I've tried so hard to do in rescue is just, provide the information to people. So when you ask, what are the nature of the calls that I get over here? I had a gentleman yesterday who wanted to surrender his dog. He doesn't know the fact that, there are high kill shelters, there are low kill shelters, and there are no kill shelters. He isn't aware of that. He wants a rescue to take on his dog, and why is he getting rid of his dog? Because his dog's peeing all over his house. Well, I said, obviously you haven't neutered your dog. Why? Well, I can't afford it. I said, have you heard of GoFundMe? Right? Have you heard of passing the hat around your family? Right? I said, no rescue organization is going to take your problem dog unneutered. It's just, we can't do it. There's too many animals out there. Now I get other, calls day in, day out. I get a raccoon in a garbage bin down at the local dispensary here, and nobody knows enough to get a ladder, open the lid and put the ladder in and let him climb out, or I got to pick a raccoon out of a creek. He's stuck under a rock. I got an injured squirrel. I've got a cat sitting on someone's lawn in the middle of broad daylight. She looks pregnant. She's clearly asking for help. She wasn't pregnant. She was completely full of cancer and had to be euthanized. Obviously, she was dumped by her family. So, the situation over here is just, I get calls for absolutely everything animal-wise.
Well, and you brought up one point, and actually in a couple situations you referenced it, where pet owners, one of the reasons they surrender their pets is because they can't afford to take care of them, especially when a veterinary bill comes up. So with rescue, clearly this is an issue because you're taking on, these dogs with special needs, and there's a lot of expense that goes on with that. What types of things do you do to kind of make sure, hey, we can afford to do this, yet be able to afford it and afford the care that these dogs need?
Well, the beauty of the rescue community in Canada, because certainly I'm not alone and I'm not special. I can name you 200 people just like me. They don't have the scope of the work that I do, but they're in it for life, 24/7, working for animals. They're paying all these funds out of their own pockets. So, the beauty of our community is that we've now, thanks to Hurricane Katrina, actually, that was when it all started, with all the rescues tending to work together. So, if I've got a resource that another rescue doesn't have, I'll chip in there. Or, like right now, I'm fostering 2 small dogs, and the rescue is doing all of their veterinary billing. So, it's just, we all work together and somehow we make it work. And like I said, at worst comes to worst, go out there and ask for, set up a GoFundMe campaign, or just get out there and say, hey, on Facebook, I really need help with my vet bill. Can anyone donate? And they do. I had that with my shepherd 2 weeks ago. She's taken a very bad turn, and temporary turn. And I was very hard pressed to deal with the bills. And I just went out to my community and just said, hey, anyone who's got like an extra, $20-$50, can you just send it over? And several of them did. And it really took the brunt off the payment. So other people can do that too. They just don't think to do that for their animals.
Yeah. And there's probably a pride factor as well, having to say, hey, I need financial help. I think a lot of people don't want to beg for money, for lack of a better term.
There's a pride factor, but there's also a common sense factor that's missing.
Gotcha. So, one of the other things that you specialize in is the boarding of special needs pets. And,
yes,
and we talked about that at the top of the show. This is definitely a passion of yours. And how did this start, relative to the rescue? And, what would you consider special needs for those?
Well, okay, so first of all, special needs animals are geriatric. They are very often palliative. They will, or special needs could be, they have specific medical handicaps like vision loss or hearing loss. They could be paralyzed. They could be incontinent. They could be insulin dependent. That's kind of the broad scope of the special needs that I work with here. And how did it happen? It was really kind of interesting. I was in Toronto, living on Bathurst Street, with my 3-legged, 80-pound shepherd cross named Stormy. He was suffering from the loss of his right front limb. 80-pound dog. You can picture the barrel chest on him. Everybody in the neighborhood carried him up and down the stairs at least once in their life. 3 times a day. And so I was very tired of Toronto. Stormy ended up injuring his only good front left leg. And I was so disheartened. I thought, that's it. I'm moving. I'm moving out of the city. I can't take it anymore. So I found, just by a complete miracle, I found this little home that I was ultimately able to afford. And the first night I moved in here, I had a little terrier who was with me for a very short year. And I was thinking to myself, how am I ever going to handle this financially? Then I had like this thunderbolt, and I just thought, wow, this place is perfectly set up for boarding. Why don't I just do that on the side with my own business just to make sure the mortgage gets paid? So that was how it started. And really, it's been fantastic, because nobody does special needs boarding. And a lot of kennels will actually not take your dog if they're over 9 years of age, because they're afraid of the liability. So I'm not afraid of the liability. I mean, screen my dogs. So it's turned into a very, very positive aspect of my life. I mean, you'd never know. I've got 3 of them here right now.
Yeah, they're all very quiet, unlike my dogs. What sort of equipment or things do you need to do boarding for special needs, with where you're at?
I have it all. I have special harnesses. I have leashes and harnesses for all the animals. I have a full pantry in my office here with everything from pee-pee pads to various medications to catnip to syringes to blankets and coats and grooming materials, several veterinary books. I also have red laser treatment pad here. I have yoga mats on the floors for traction for the animals. I have elevated bowls. I'm a big fan of safety first. So, the fences are checked regularly, and I got to make sure I got no jumpers. There's rather a lot of equipment, I have to say. And I also, oh, please, let me mention this for anybody out there who's really, wants to do rescue and really doesn't know what they're doing yet. At some point or another, you're going to have a problem with an animal. Keep a go bag in your car. Keep a heavy set of gloves. Keep a set of heavy duty safety glasses. Have a couple of leashes so you can noose a dog if you need to noose a dog. Have a towel so you can pick up a bird or a turtle. I always have a go bag in the car just in case, because I know animals. I'm going to find them. They're going to find me. Right. So yes, there's a lot of equipment involved.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that is great advice for any pet professional that relies on their car, because you never know what will happen. Yes, pet sitters, dog walkers, and the like, pet taxi. I mean, these are all things where, something like that could apply as well.
Mm-hmm. And always have a bird box in the car.
Absolutely. So what sort of, when you went into this, I mean, what sort of qualifications, skill sets do you think someone needs to kind of take this on? Because I'm sure there's, it's a unique skill set that you would probably have to do special needs boarding versus, hey, I'm just going to do a kennel or do a boarding facility.
Yeah, I honestly don't recommend it for anybody, to be perfectly honest. The risks are great, and you are in charge of a little soul's well-being. You need to know what you're doing. So at the very least, you need to, have veterinary assisting or veterinary technician credentials, I would say. And I would also say that I would also highly recommend that you at least have some kind of experiential portfolio in rescue. Because, I've said for a long time now, and it's only because I've got the luxury of 20 years. I started out with nothing as well. But anyone who has any less than 10 years in rescue, I say don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. There's too much to learn.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. I mean, even for me, who's dealt with animals for many, many years, and we have had to deal with the occasional special needs pet. It can be overwhelming, no doubt. In terms of, you said you've been doing this for quite some time. How did this business start to blossom and grow? And what things did you do to kind of promote that, hey, for special needs, I'm the person, for your pet?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a very extensive portfolio working within the Canadian media at the executive level. So um, I have a tremendous amount of marketing strengths and social media strengths, and I know how to position things properly. I write like there's no tomorrow. So writing copy is not difficult for me. Finding audiences. Harvesting those audiences, aggregating those audiences. That's all stuff that comes to me like in my sleep. I just use all my professional skills from my day job and apply them to my night job. Well, my rescue job. But um, but you do need to have marketing pieces, and you need to understand who your audience is, and then you have to reach the audience. So here's the trick: you got to reach the audience with the most compelling story possible about that animal, because unless it's a compelling story, people it's not going to resonate with people, and they're not going to jump in and help. So you can't just say, I lost my dog, call this number if you see him. Okay? Like that's, forget it. Like that's just in one ear and out the other with people. But if you write up the dog's story and tell the who, what, when, where, and why, okay, give full contact information, get a JPEG beauty shot into that post, well, now you're starting to cook with a little bit more gas, right?
Yeah, and I think that is an area where I think a lot of pet professionals kind of suffer from because they may not they may either have writer's block or quite frankly time management. Being able to write up a blog post or do something like that where I think there are definitely some challenges there for someone that doesn't have that type of experience. But it is something that's critical because I think anytime you go into a business, whether it's related to pets or not, most people focus on the core aspect of the business and not, hey, how am I going to promote it to make it grow? And I think that's something that you bring up some great points on how you've been able to do that.
Any pet business actually, well, forgive me, any business, let alone a pet business, takes an approximate 5 years to establish. So just start and then, create one success and then build from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably about how long it took for us to grow our initial business. We saw, kind of an uptick probably in the third year, and then probably year 5 was kind of like, the doors blew off, which, it does take time. And that's why I think in any business or any pet related business, there is a lot of turnover because people do kind of give up before kind of hitting that point where that they've really, grown and matured that business. So getting back to the special needs aspects, we talked a lot about the physical needs of a special needs pet. What about the emotional issues that kind of come along with some of these physical ailments that they might have?
Well, let me make an analogy with humans, okay? I'm not going to exclude myself. Absolutely every being on earth has emotions and has problems and has different psychology and has different socialization, okay? We all bring our own unique package to the table, all right? Same deal with the animals, okay? Every last one that comes through this door has a kind of personality profile unique to that dog. And so my challenge is to figure out where the problems are, if any, on an emotional level with a dog, and then deal with them accordingly. Or if I've just got a happy-go-lucky dog, then that's great. He can't walk, but he's happy-go-lucky. Well, then that's fine too. But they all have a personality profile, and I pride myself on giving them. I say when they get here, I don't force them to be anywhere or do anything. There's dog beds all over the house. There's little cubby holes where they can hang out and hide if they want. I give them absolute autonomy, and then I let them come to me on their terms, not mine. Okay. And that just, it might take 12 hours, it might take 36 hours, and one dog took 10 days. But eventually they relax and they feel safe enough that they will come to me, and then we can start the sort of what I call the happy process. Now they've been in, first you have to induct them or introduce them to the property and all that stuff. And then now we can actually enrich their lives and make them happy once I've got them settled. But again, they all have individual personalities, and I urge everyone to study their pets in that regard, because they will tell you a heck of a lot if you're just busy listening and watching, listening to them and watching them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where obviously they don't talk, at least not English, but, there's definitely ways of figuring out, some of the things they may be trying to tell you. So, we mentioned it at the top, and it's kind of how you got into rescue. One of the issues that you deal with in the business, and I deal with it as well, is the eventual death of a pet that you've taken care of. No doubt in dealing with special needs pets, you probably deal with this a little more frequently than, most pet care providers, other than maybe say a vet. How do you personally prepare for it emotionally?
I don't think you can ever really be prepared for it emotionally. I am no stranger to death. I've dealt with far, far, far too much of it, and I do have post-traumatic stress as a result thereof. But I also actually have post-traumatic growth now, because I've dealt with 12 of my own dogs that I've had to say goodbye to personally. And then, of course, with my business, I take on geriatric pets all the time. So within a 2 to 3 to 4 year window, that little soul that's been coming here regularly for weeks on end at any given point they're going to die. So it's very distressing. Now, what I do is I take my pet's death and I turn it into, I reinvent my pet. I turn it into something new. So in the case of Cyril and Missy dying in 2005 and me going to Katrina, I went to Katrina in their name. I did it for them. I did it to honor them. And I facilitated for those 60 dogs in honor of Missy and Cyril. And then when Stormy, my three-legged dog, died, it was unfortunate. He was perfectly sound, perfectly well, except his structure of his other arm completely blew. So Stormy died on March 20th. And then another year or two later, another dog turned up in my life. And I was told that she was born in the month of March on a certain date. So I gave her Stormy's death date as her new rescue and birthday. So I'm always reinventing. And when Stella arrived, I had just lost Trixie Lou. And so I called, Stella came with the name Stella. So then I changed her name to Stella Luella. So there's always a little tie-in from one to the other that kind of makes the whole thing kind of a much bigger picture, And then the reinvention piece is when you do lose your pet, first of all, write your pet a letter, okay, on letterstopushkin.com. It's a fantastically cathartic exercise. And there's a model for grief out there where a new model for grief, where you have to first accept what's happened. You have to process psychologically what's happened. You need to adjust. These things all take time. And then there's the reinvention piece. And it's the reinvention piece that makes you actually come to terms with your pet's death at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that reinvention piece is something that I find fascinating, because you do kind of connect these pets together as, really, make them so much more of a part of your life, and they still continue even beyond their death. And that's something, I mean, a lot of times with pet owners, I know there's sometimes an inclination to just, oh, this dog passed away, let's go out, get another pet. But, that's probably not a good idea, for a lot of reasons, right?
It's definitely not a good idea. You need time. You need time to process that loss. And I mean, I fell subject to this myself. Cyril was the dog of my dreams. We lived together for 14 years, 2 months and 10 days. He was absolutely brilliant. He was so brilliant. I taught him American Sign Language when he went deaf, right? That's how smart he was. He was just in a class of his own. And then, Missy came and she died. And then, the other ones kept coming. And I realized all along that, I had such a beautiful bonded relationship with Cyril. I always thought I would get it in the other dogs, and I never got that back. I got 13 other different dogs, but never that one. And so, but I find that people go out looking to replace that dog, and it's not the same relationship. It's not the same history, not the same personality, not the same physiology. Everything is different, and people are very often not prepared for that.
No, I think it would be like trying to replace someone in a relationship. You try and make them like, that other person, or in this case, that other dog. And yeah, it's generally going to end up in disappointment. So
yeah, hello, rebound.
yeah. So, so one area, and that kind of intersects with your daytime life, and it's funny because you mentioned about time, and I'm like, how does she even have time? But one area where, this intersects with your daytime life is that you have a 6-point tip sheet for media professionals that help with the way animals are represented in the media.
Oh, yes, I do, actually. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that, and tell me how the media is different, say, in Canada, versus the United States, if you could.
Well, I can't address how the U.S. is, so I'm just going to stick to Canada.
Sure.
My experience is long and broad with traditional Canadian media, television, radio, print. And in my daytime job, I have beautiful, lovely working relationships straight across the industry. But when it comes to animals is where I draw the line with Canadian media. And I've fired more than one news team on the subject of animals. We are hopelessly behind as a culture, as a society. We are hopelessly behind in our representation of animals. Someone on air refers to an animal as an it. It is not an it. It is either a he or a she. Okay? Get was 2019 already, right? They only do animal stories on slow news days or the big grandiose, the pit bull stories. Where's the story about the beagle that ripped a kid's face off? Right? They're not going to cover a beagle, but they're going to cover a pit or what they think might be a pit. Okay, so I have a lot of complaints. In extreme weather, hello climate crisis. In extreme weather, why are you not reminding people to keep your pets indoors? Why on a weekend like this are the newscasters not taking some responsibility when they mention the local fireworks events and just put in a small "don't bring your pets to the fireworks"? Right? I mean, come on, media, like really, it's not like you don't know this. So yes, I got frustrated with that at one point, and I did put together a 6-point thing or an 8-point thing, whatever it was. And because of my proximity and because of my relationships, my existing relationships with Canadian media, I was able to get that into all of the newsrooms, and I'm damn glad I did.
Have you seen more news outlets reporting on it?
Not yet.
Okay.
I was just thinking last week, actually, that they're due for the reminder piece. So I'm going to be sending out a reminder piece somewhere between now and probably the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, we're recording this episode right before 4th of July and the fireworks. Yeah, it's really a problem. And it amazes me that more pet owners and people don't realize it on their own, that they do need to be reminded by the media or, somebody. But getting that word out for that, and like you said, extreme weather, walking dogs on sidewalks when it's 90 degrees out, and
the demonization of animals. Okay, like the representation of the black cats at Halloween.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Or the giving of puppies at Christmas as gifts. Come on, people. In the rescue circles, we don't even allow adoptions over Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, because unfortunately, to your point, those Christmas gifts end up being rescue dogs by February. And,
absolutely.
Same thing with, bunnies over Easter. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many examples where better representation can happen. So I think it's great that you're putting that out. So one thing you've also done is you've developed a webinar that actually educates people on caring with pets with special needs. I know you said, hey, this is something I don't recommend for anybody, but you do have a webinar for it in case, they're not going to heed that advice. So tell us about the webinar and how people can attend it.
Well, I had the good fortune of meeting the ladies from educanine.org about a year and a half ago at a Some Animal event. And I was intrigued by the educanine piece when I saw their literature. So I picked it up, I had a look at it, I contacted them, and I said, like, this is an absolutely fantastic idea. And I wanted to see just how business oriented they actually were and what their vision was for educational product via webinars. So we got going. We decided to do a special needs one. So with their help and their expertise, because it was their expertise on the technical end and making it available on the website, etc., we managed to put together this hour-long webinar for how to handle special needs animals. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed doing it. It was extremely well received. And actually the ladies were back to me just last week saying that it's time for us to do a full video record and make this available full time, like for people to watch, not just at a given seminar time, like by appointment viewing, but have it available for people to purchase and watch any old time they want so that we can get the product out there to more people for more pets.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'll certainly post links to that as well once you have that. So one thing I mentioned at the top of the show is you wrote a careers book. So it's only appropriate that you're working on a second book, and it's dealing with animal rescue and advocacy. It's easy for me to say, right? It's not like I'm a podcast or anything. So I know it's still in the planning stages, but what do you want to share? And what do you plan on writing about?
I'm going to be, well, all throughout these, because I write, I can no less write than I can not breathe. So all throughout all this history, this trajectory of taking care of the animals and doing all the rescue and whatnot, I've kept notes in my computer, and it's just blossomed into, I've got hundreds of pages of anecdotal evidence, what I've seen in my history with all of these animals. And I haven't settled on the title yet, but the working subtitle is going to be If I Knew Then What I Know Now. Okay. So it's basically, take, for instance, you go to your veterinarian and with your dog who's been having little coughing spells and whatnot, and vet, examines your animal and sends you home with a diagnosis of congestive heart. All right. So now what do you do with that? Well, you give your dog pills, right, that the veterinarian gave you. But does the veterinarian tell you that you have probably anywhere from, it could be up to 18 months left with your dog? Does the veterinarian tell you how this thing rolls out? Do you know that when your dog is sleeping on his face rather than on his side with his legs extended, when he's sleeping on his face, it's because he can't breathe? Okay. And, they just don't give you the trajectory of the disease. I learned with Max that with his spleen tumor, what was going to happen was that the problem with Max was he couldn't get up off the ground. He was just done. He was fried. He was exhausted. So when I got him into the vet and we discovered he had an 8-inch spleen tumor, that's a pretty big tumor. Okay. Yeah. Well, what's happening is all the blood in his body is in that tumor. So he's got no blood in his body to pump his heart. And that's why he can't stand up. So people need to know. Now, it's not going to be a really depressing book in that respect, but, people need to know how these things roll out. And I know how to write a story and make it appealing even in those circumstances. So that's what the book is going to focus on. It's going to be based on all the best practices that I've developed and seen and learned throughout these last 20 years dealing with dying animals. And I want to share that knowledge so that other people aren't caught flat-footed when their animal gets an egregious diagnosis.
Well, I definitely look forward to the book. When do you have a target date on when you think you might get around to this?
I'm okay. So my first book took me 13 months stem to stern, but that one was a lot more straightforward. Um, this one right now, I'm struggling with the outline, so it's taking more thinking time because I have this whole sort of longitudinal story with my dog Cyril that I kind of want to be able to tell because I love him so much and I just want to remember him. But then I have all these short story formats with all the other animals. So it's trying to find a way of crafting the outline. So once I have the outline done, I think the book is actually just going to write itself, frankly. So I'm thinking probably this time next year it'll be available.
Awesome. So, we've learned a lot about it today, and but I'd like to learn something that probably most people don't know about you. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can think of off the top of your head that maybe most people don't know about you.
Mm. Well, the first answer that comes to mind is, why me and why rescue? To which I can only clearly respond, I am that animal. I have been that animal in distress. I have been that abandoned animal. So that's why I see it so clearly. And I would venture, although I can't speak for my rescue colleagues, but I've said for years and years now that most people in animal rescue have attachment disorders or unmet attachment needs. And that is not a slur. That's beautiful because what happens here is we all have a tremendous amount of empathy. And the world is a really nasty place for the most part amongst humans. But you can always count on the unconditional love of an animal. So maybe that's one thing that people don't know about me, but I wear my empathy on my sleeve. And I encourage everybody else to because God knows, God's know, the world desperately needs the empathy.
Well, I think that's a great message to kind of end things on. So where can people connect with you?
The website, C4P Animal Rescue.ca. That's C like Charlie, number 4, P as in Peter, Animal Rescue.ca. You can always contact me through that website and or mediaIntelligence.ca. I'm always here. I'm always available. I'm pretty much chained to my desk, and I never refuse a call. And I always try to resource people. Doesn't matter what the animal situation, time of day is, whatever. I am here, and I'm happy to help.
That's great. And we're going to make sure we put all the links that we talked about today up on the website when we post the show. Michelle Nadon, thank you very much for being a part of Pet Care Rockstars today. And we will see everybody later.
Thanks for the opportunity, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Pet Care Rockstars program. If you're looking to start or grow your pet care business, this program is for you. The Pet Care Rockstars program features downloadable content, including forms, contracts, audio and video tutorials, and much more. In addition, you'll have lifetime access to everything in the Pet Care Rockstars program, along with all future content, which we will be updating on a regular basis. Go to petcarerockstars.com and click on the Become a Pet Care Rockstar Now link at the top of the page. And we'll see you on the next episode of Pet Care Rockstars.
This has been Pet Care Rockstars with Dave Westwood. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the show so you'll be first to hear new episodes packed with tips and tools for your pet care business. And visit our website at petcarerockstars.com to find out about the Pet Care Rockstars program, our all-in-one solution to get you up and running for your pet care business. To join the conversation and access more great content on your favorite social media sites, just search Pet Care Rockstars.